Concord Players are putting on a production of She Kills Monsters in Concord, Massachusetts, running from November 7th through the 22nd. She Kills Monsters is a play about a woman coming to terms with tragedy through 2nd edition D&D. It'll tug at your heartstrings and be rad as the nine hells. For more information and to purchase tickets, check out their website at concordplayers.org. Welcome to the Game Masters Book Club, the podcast where great fiction becomes your next great role-playing experience. This episode, 3 new Game Masters, Rob Trimarco, Jason Keeley, and Keren Form, investigate the Eyre Affair, the first book in the extremely surreal Thursday Next series, where intrigue, English literature, and genetically resurrected dodos collide to make a literary romp at your gaming table. Let's get into the conversation. Hey everybody, welcome to the Game Masters Book Club, and today we're going to introduce 3 new Game Masters, which is always a blast. So I've got questions for everybody here. I'm going to ask Keren to go first. Keren, can you tell us a little something about your gamer journey, and can you tell us about a secret agency that has existed in your game or you've experienced in gaming that you think is super cool?
I started role-playing a little differently than everybody else. I'm a child of the 70s, but I did not start with D&D. I actually did not start role-playing until college and started with Shadowrun. But since then, I have, of course, played D&D and like 1,000 other miscellaneous games, indie games, playtesting for friends, etc. I am actually in a gaming group currently and for the past 20 years with my fellow GM here, Jason, a gaming group that was started specifically to try different rule systems and switch around GMs about every 4 to 6 weeks. And I've also, with our other guest Rob, done a ton of gaming in various different worlds. I personally, when I DM, like to run very simple games now. I really like playing pretend. That aspect much more than being bogged down in rules. So I mostly run with this cobbled together set of rules that combines the 2 dice and add bonuses powered by the apocalypse kind of thing, and then using questions and character creation to help develop story hooks and character backstories for everybody, because this way it helps me as a GM sprinkle the game with plot points that derive from the character backgrounds and really kind of brings everybody together more that way. As far as secret societies, because we run like these 4 to 6 week type things, I generally don't have giant societies built into things. But I believe we also talked about different planes of existence, our favorite ones of that.
Oh, I screwed up. That was me. Oh no. I even have it written down here. Anyway, yes, it says alternate planes, and I have my note for mine there. Yeah. So there we go. So, Keren, now that you've told us about your gaming journey, why don't you tell us about your favorite alternate plane of existence?
So I ran a D&D game set in the Strixhaven universe. And I don't know if anybody's played that. The setting's super fun, but it really leaves a lot of room to sort of play around in. So I added a bunch of interplanar portals on the campus so we could, have students come in from anywhere. So you could create a character from anywhere and then also be able to travel anywhere. This may have been influenced by me watching Star versus the Forces of Evil around that time. Woohoo! So it it led to us being able to have an adventure in the Feywild, which the students got to like find clues to and find a secret portal at the bottom of a well. And also I ported in from Star, the Star Quest Buy, which was a really big deal for students to get gift certificates there because it was fun to go there and do like item shopping, but also roll on randomized tables to see what you got out of the dollar bin.
Awesome.
We love a good table.
We the dollar bin.
Dollar bin was great.
Okay, great. Jason, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jason Keeley. If you listen to this, you might hear one or more of the other GMs here call me Hersey. That's my nickname. So don't be confused. Don't be scared.
It's just like every other fantasy book. You have your name, you have the name that your friends call you, you've got your title, you've got your mystical title and your true name. So I think our listeners can handle it.
You cannot let them know my true name. Like Keren, I didn't start out like in high school like a lot of other people did. I was more of a video game nerd growing up, but around about college, a little bit after that, I got involved with some people who were in the Renaissance Fair at the time and who were actors. And I did a little bit of acting in college, and so it was a lot of that happening. We ran some systems created by the GM, and then I eventually started running games myself. Again, it kind of started with D&D and branched out into a lot of other things, a lot of other games, a lot of other systems. And and did some writing of some stuff myself, and that eventually parlayed that into a job in the industry. I am now a senior designer with Paizo on the Pathfinder role-playing game. I've done like editing and development work for them for just about over a decade, I would say. So yes, I like the kind of semi-crunchy games like Pathfinder and D&D, and I also like the easy to run, easy to improvise in games, like the stuff that Karen was talking about, and some stuff like Blades in the Dark and that kind of thing. For Planes of Existence, I think just last summer, I ran a sort of light superhero game. I wanted to run something that was like the Across the Spider-Verse kind of stuff, right? So the group, which Karen was part of, we created a superhero together that would be our sort of base superhero, and then everyone made a sort of an alternate reality version of that superhero. So we made had this electricity-based superhero called Dynamo, and then people were like playing American Dynamo, which was the 50s, Captain America version, and someone was playing Ms. Dynamo, which is the lady version, right? Like Karen played like a sort of a more of a almost like an Avatar: The Last Airbender kind of version. Paula, my wife, played Dynamoose, which is just a moose. Electricity powers. And so I sort of like smushed them all together, threw them in a bunch of multiverses that were smushing together, and I had a sort of a Mr. Mystical Plick figure called Mr. Metaphysicles, who was doing all this just for fun. And so I like the kind of, that sort of like light and wacky other universes.
Wacky universes of fun, definitely on the list of things that all characters should experience.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, care to tell everybody who you are and what you do and what alternate plane of existence you prefer?
You got it. First off, Wacky Universes of Fun, title of your sex tape. Number one.
Nice.
My name's Rob Trimarco. Heyo. I've been playing role-playing games since the dawn of time. Well, the early 80s. Started with, of course, I was an NPC in a D&D game my junior high school friend was running with his brother. I was Sturm Brightblade in the Dragonlance module, the one with the black dragon on the cover spitting acid, and everyone was way too close. So that's when I started to play. Then there was a hobby shop, a game store near me, and there was a book on the shelf. It was called Champions. I was like, you can play a superhero? Well, for the next, decades and decades of hero system and Champions is what I pretty much played with other systems, kind of like once in a while, a little more D&D, a little of this. But I love the, like, D&D and Pathfinder are Legos. Champions and hero system is clay. I can mold anything. I can be anywhere. There's no class. Can build my own unique powers that no one's ever used. Like, that to me is the ultimate expression in a role-playing game. The character you created that doesn't necessarily have to be like, well, you're a fighter, but my guy doesn't. Shut up, you're a fighter. Okay, right? And that sort of thinking and mindset to, well, all these supplements for Pathfinder, if I have them all, it will simulate eternity and infinite choice. So I have every book, everything, a million dice, right? All of that. So because I host a lot of games at my home, my basement, if gaming was religion, my basement is its cathedral. It is very stocked with everything any GM or player would need. If you show up here and I don't have a pencil, I have failed. If you don't have multicolored dice in your hand, or if you come in here with a Ziploc bag full of dice, which my cousin did, and I yelled at him, and I handed him 2 dice bags, and now he never does that again. So I am a big fan of crunch and infinite character playability and choice and long campaigns that, you start from the bottom and become a god. I'm in. You run a game like that, count me in. So one of the more recent games we played the Marvel Multiverse RPG. And the world we set up for that was, in the comics when there's an alternate reality where the Sentinels won or Dr. Doom has won and evil has triumphed and the heroes are all but killed. Well, in our universe, all the heroes woke up early and said, we have to work together to fight the horrifying things that beset our planet every 3 weeks. So sure, you have your X-Men and Magneto fights, but when push comes to shove, everybody puts that aside and stops the problem. And an incredibly wacky turn of events, the unifying event or the conflict doesn't collapse into evil winning. For once in this universe, the good guys have a handle on it. And sure, a big incursion comes and then they fight it. And that changes the storyline of a lot of the timeline. So we had that world and a lot of the things that happen in the Marvel universe didn't happen in ours in the same way. So my character was, what if Frank Castle found the Crimson Gem of the Sidorak? So I have the Juggisher, right? A Punisher juggernaut. And our friend Mike was playing Bucky, the beginning of Hydra trying to brainwash him to become an assassin, merged with the Spirit of Vengeance, the Ghost Soldier. So there was a lot of fun out of that. And I love alternate worlds that kind of bolster players. I'm a big pro player GM.
My name is Eric Jackson. I'm the host of the podcast. I've been playing since the Pleistocene era. I started with a blue box of D&D and have played every game that anyone put in front of me since then, though I have primarily been a D&D player. And part of the reason why I have this podcast is that I wanted to meet super cool people like you who have done things that are not like the kinds of things that I have done, so that we could talk about really interesting games. My favorite alternate plane is the Shadowfell, except I don't use it as like the place where it is darkness and a dreariness and no emotions. I use it as a place of forgottenness, and I like that better. And the way that I run the Shadowfell is I run it as if every city that has ever existed, all of the parts of the city that eventually are destroyed and forgotten, they find a home there. And so basically the Shadowfell becomes a giant city that is pieced together of all of the parts of cities that have ever existed, and some that existed in other worlds and other places and other times and other dimensions. So that is my favorite alternate plane that I have run on multiple occasions.
It's like the more positive version of Carcosa.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely, yes. Yeah, absolutely, way more positive. So that's where we are, and we are the people who are going to bring to you today The Eyre Affair by Jasper Fforde. This is a fantastic mystery, time travel, literature masterpiece. Certainly received a great deal of popular critical reception when it was first published. In an alternate timeline, Thursday next, a LitTech spy in Spec Ops 27 in the British Empire. Spec Ops 27 specializes in crimes related to works of literature, particularly those of English literature. She is pitted against Keren Hades, a master criminal, as well as the Goliath Corporation, the big evil guys who saved Britain. The focus of Keren Hades ends up being an invention of her uncle Mycroft, who is a crazy, doddering inventor. The invention is called the Prose Portal, which is filled with worms and allows people to enter works of literature. I know. Stay with me. Keren seeks to sabotage English literature by going into the pages of Jane Eyre. He is eventually stopped by Thursday within the pages of Jane Eyre with the help of Mr. Rochester. Also, there's an old flame, a time-traveling father, tourists who are going through various works of literature, and her aunt being romanced by Wordsworth. So let's talk about how we'd like to turn this into a tabletop role-playing game.
So half the stuff you mentioned doesn't happen until the last third of the book. Too.
Yeah,
there's
Right.
so much
absolutely.
about what's going on in this book. You know, it was. I read it when it first came out, and I'd forgotten that it was so wild. There's this alternate history, has stuff going on in it that, you know, they cloned dodos, and you can have a dodo as a pet. They've got, this doesn't happen until the second book, but there's a massive tax on cheeses. Stuff like that. Like it's weird, it's wacky, it's wild. It has a lot of reminiscent to me of like Douglas Adams and Terry Pratchett work. So and I think Jasper Fforde is indeed, he's Welsh, and that's why the People's Republic of Welsh is an independent country in this book, I think. So
I had also forgotten about the whole Crimean War thing. In this alternate history, they are still fighting the Crimean War, and it is a huge plot point in there that completely had slipped my mind.
This is the first book in a series that's now 7 books long, and I think it gets wilder the more you read, the further in you go. Just stuff happening. This Keren Hades, this supervillain, he has got basically got superpower. And something explains that he can just sort of talk to you, make you shoot yourself, essentially. He's too powerful to be fought, but yet they fight him. I know one other thing to mention, Eric, is that throughout most of the book, they mention how people don't like the ending of Jane Eyre, and I had to think about it. Is that how it ends? And no, because what Thursday does when she fights Hades in Jane Eyre changes the ending of the book for every book, and it's the actual ending that you would know if you read Jane Eyre now. It's explains things in Jane Eyre that don't make any sense because of what Thursday does in the book. It's kind of crazy.
It is absolutely a humbling experience to read this book because it makes me realize how little I actually know of English literature.
If I may, like, then you might want to move to some. There's another series that Jasper has written. They're called the Nursery Crimes, and they're basically noir. It's in the same. I think they might be just sort of a spin-off, basically them investigating crimes. Of the first one is called The Big Over Easy, and it investigates the death of Humpty Dumpty. It's very noir, and it's very yeah. This is the kind of thing that I love because it's so wild and so open that you can kind of do almost any kind of adventure in it. The sort of modern crime mystery adventure, but supernatural at the same time. There's superhero, there's time travel. It's like it's got kind of just a little bit about everything that you could do. And so I'm going to start talking about systems now. Does that help?
I was about to tell you to do so.
So for me, I had a couple ideas for this. One of them would just be the fate system, which is nice and big and broad and open, and you can just sort of like pick things like what spec ops division you're from. That's one of your aspects. You really only need to sort of give yourself some whatever to plus up to +3 in certain skills. Those skills are generally pretty broad, or you can sort of make up your own. So that would be one thing. And being something like, oh, I'm a cloned Neanderthal, and that would work for you and against you. That's a great way to get a fate point. And the other system that I would think about using, Gumshoe system, which is also pretty rules light and has just some skills. And since it's basically about solving mysteries, the GM sort of gives clues out. You don't have to roll to find a clue. You always find a clue. And Gumshoe has 2 setting books, I would say, or sort of offshoots. One is called Night Black Agents, which is about sort of solving supernatural mysteries. And actually, I think it has a vampirism skill, which is another thing. Vampires and werewolves are in this universe. Hey, something we forgot to mention. And it's also got a source book called Time Watch, which is about time travel. So mashing those 2 together in some way would probably make for a good Thursday Next campaign.
Fantastic. Rob, you want to go next?
Surely. Given the complete wackadoo nature of this entire book's universe, the Doctor Who role-playing game probably would be the great fit for it. It's not always about fighting, it's about running, and it's about clues and it's just a simple system. Roll a couple of dice, add a number, and you do a thing. But you can spend drama points or plot points. I forgot the word or how they use, but to kind of add to the story or change it as well. Says this whole crazy travel into books and talk to Jane Eyre is so Doctor Who. But also the system I also kind of was looking at was the Genesis system, which is also the root of the Fantasy Flight Star Wars game, with its wacky dice, which sure, you can roll to hit or punch or shoot somebody, but you might miss, but get advantage for the next thing you do, or you get to narrate a change in the scene based on what you roll, which happens all the time in this book. And I would throw in a little DCC, a little Dungeon Crawl Classic crazy chart in there, because 2 people in this as guests here, that's all we did when we first started playing DCC for the first time. We randomized our names, we randomized where we were from, our home base, in roll damp, number 2 roll reptile. Great, that's where we're from. We're from damp reptile. And my best friend was Dougal Garlic. Okay, sure.
Which would definitely match the names that are in this book, like Thursday Next and Jack Shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just amazing.
Jack Shit, that was a reach. Okay, I get it. That wasn't like a thinly veiled joke. Okay. But that sort of vein where all the wacky inventions of Mycroft. What does this invention do? Let's roll on the chart. Uh-oh. It is a worm that eats words and poops apostrophes. Great. Let's use that somehow in the game. We're going to do it.
I got a hard when the text changes because of the bookworm.
Yes.
Spitting out too many apostrophes.
Yeah.
Makes it difficult to read. Those apostrophes all through the text.
Rob, I double checked. It is drama points for
Yes, it is drama points. Okay, I figured. Okay.
Keren, do you want to go ahead and give us your input on the mechanical side on this?
Sure. Thought of 2 different games that I think it would be fun to run this in. The first is the Triangle Agency, which it's more of a horror bent to that one, where you're sort of working for this kind of shady company, hunting down all sorts of weird anomalies and haunted items. Apparently there's a lot of haunted trees, things that are messing with people and places. But I really feel that can be easily modded to solve literature crimes or whatnot. It's also very weird and wacky, and you get bizarre powers and strange contacts and like different fun items, and it really kind of would work perfectly to be skinned to different various spec ops divisions, I think. Other, mainly because during the entire book, Thursday's father, who is on the run from the time travel agency, keeps coming back and being like, oh, hey, so do you remember what happened in, like, you know, to Nelson in the war? Is he still alive? Like, what went on? I thought that Time and Temp by my good friend Epodiah Ravishal would be perfect for this. In that game, you're temp workers who are kind of working for an organization. You're cleaning up paradoxes. It's a lot of fun, and my favorite part of that game is that you can come back from a future time to help yourself, but there's always something weird or wrong with you. Like, I don't know, you're missing a leg, or you only speak French, or you're a robot all of a sudden. Fun part is you get to, like, work that into the game, which is a lot of fun, and that's really just kind of goes along the same lines of going back as a person and, you know, switching up time. And also, I feel the intern aspect would be super fun, because Spec Ops obviously is like a real government agency, but I feel there are a lot of interns working around pushing their paper and whatnot, and throwing people in that have no idea what's going on is always a great time.
Nothing quite like putting the innocent into danger to make a game exciting.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's me now. Okay, great. So when I first started hearing about the various time travel thing, I focused on two different pieces. The first one, which I will not spend a lot of time on, was Time Master, which is way back from 1984. Which at the time, it was one of the few games that was really doing time travel and always kept my interest peaked. It had a lot of secret societies and that sort of thing. Its system is terrible. Please don't play it. But go back and read some of the literature that went with it, because it was fun stuff. There were some great stories in there. But if I were going to play a more modern game where you had factions that were trying to change either literature or history, I would go with the current Feng Shui tabletop role-playing game. You could pick somebody like Thursday Next who could have the ability to slip in naturally into literature, or as an archetype. Would they use an archetype creation system there? And you can join one of the many secret war factions that try to control the time stream. And it would be super easy to just take, as Thursday's father talks about, the French constantly working against the English. You could very easily just substitute anybody into these various secret war factions. Last, I'd probably throw in City of Mists, MISTS, just to be sure. It has a system where you are playing a literature-based character. You have a real-world logos, the person who goes to work and does things, but you have something awoken within you because you are an embodiment of a mythos, an archetypical type of character. So you could be the big bad wolf, you could be Captain Nemo, you could be Prospero. Any of those people could be someone who's awakened inside of you. And there are two worlds that you're constantly bouncing back and from, the mythos world and the logos world. And that definitely looks like the kind of story that the Eyre Affair is. So those are my suggestions. Rob, we're going to start you off.
Yeah.
Now that we've discussed the book and the mechanics, let's just talk about the portables, the things that we're absolutely just going to steal whole cloth and drop into some game we're going to play because it's just cool. What do you got?
Yeah. One of the things I liked about the book, it's not really mechanically relevant, but it was a very fun thing about the universe, was the fact that they loved, was it Richard III, the play, so much that it became a cult classic in the way that Rocky Horror Picture Show did. So audience participation, shouting, people get picked every performance to be the characters of the play from the audience, and they all know it by heart. So like a scene in the game and that, like, you know, either revolving around it, people, player characters, try and get their performance in that play recognized for some reason, or maybe something happened during the play that they're trying to figure out as it happens, but they can't disrupt it, so they have to participate, would be very, very, very fun. And then also, like, I love a wacky weapon. They're trying to make a plasma gun work with the power of fiction. Yeah, let's write that up. The only reason it works is because you have to pull your enemy into a book, and then you can shoot him with your weird gun, you know?
Classic player character abuse of a loophole in the rules. Perfect.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to bring you into Jurassic Park and I'm going to kill you with my Triceratops, you know, whatever.
Oh, so I'm going to jump right on top of Rob's there and say that my favorite thing.
Get off of me.
Sorry.
Don't jump on top of me.
Anyway.
Don't jump on me. Okay,
so anyway, Rob talks about a society that exists in the Eyre Affair in which people are obsessed with English literature to the point where they would make a Rocky Horror Picture Show. Or my personal favorite, the one that I liked, there's a little robot that sits on the corner that you can put a pound coin into, and it will just recite your favorite Shakespeare soliloquy to you. The idea that such a society exists and that I could take that society and drop it into even like a fantasy world or a science fiction world and just have that as a thing that existed. Yes, all you have to do is you tap this 3 times or give a prayer to the god and it will repeat back the words of the prophet. Or, yeah, all you got to do is, 3 credits and we'll definitely tell you all about the 12 poets of the 9 suns from this solar system, or have it recite Vogon poetry, right? Like, it's just, I know that could be actually that's a WMD. We shouldn't do that. But you get my point. Like, we very often talk about cultures that are popular culture obsessed, America, but the idea that popular culture around literature would be so strong that these things would exist, just in and of itself, to me, is a fabulous world building shtick that I'd love to throw into some culture at some point during my world building experience.
Yeah, me too.
I picture those things as being like Zoltans, basically. Just like looking.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In a little glass box.
It probably looks like Shakespeare, mechanical version of Shakespeare.
Absolutely. Like, does that weird robot gesticulate thing, blinks its eyes at the wrong time? Like, the whole thing. Absolutely.
His chin just goes up and down when it talks, but like nothing else.
Absolutely. 100%. Keren, do you want to talk about stuff that you would make portable?
Sure. Yeah. So when I run a game, and I frequently base things on whatever book or show I'm watching, but I like to sort of play around the edges of things. Like, instead of going directly in and having like, oh, what if we interact with Thursday next? I like to sort of have people that either like work for a similar organization or they're on the side while the main action is happening. And I really love the whole idea of the LitTechs. It's great. It was very classics based though, so I feel it would be fun to explore that in different genres of fiction, things where you can get more insane, whether it's in like fantasy or sci-fi or romance. And then also the whole idea that there's a whole division for art as well, which they didn't really go into, but they kept talking about the fights between sort of the surrealists and, I don't know, the realists on the street. There were all sorts of issues, so I feel running something that would be where you're on the art tech team, or perhaps it's a LitTech and art tech together who have to investigate graphic novels or comics. I also really, really, of course, love the idea that in this alternate time that they have discovered technology to clone extinct species. People own dodos and Tasmanian tigers. So I would love to be able to somehow play around with that. I don't know, something like having that old like Animal Cop show they used to have on Animal Planet, where you're rescuing, like, I don't know, someone who's got a warehouse full of dodos or whatnot, or anything involving that, taking down bat cloners. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Jason?
I do enjoy trying to shove time travel into games, sometimes even when it's not appropriate. And the thing I love about time travel is trying to get my players into a predestination paradox, which is showing them something from the future and then basically, what the camera's talking about, time and temp, and then seeing if they can get to that point, I'm afraid.
For just showing them something and saying, you're going here, and then watching them struggle against it as you continually move them closer to it.
Yeah. Essentially that kind of thing. Okay. One of the things that sort of does to happen in this book, The Time Traveling Dad, apparently goes back and gives Shakespeare a book of complete works of Shakespeare. So are the plays of Shakespeare, who are they actually written by? Now there's there's a lot of arguments about whether it's Bacon or Spencer or whatever, but like, the fact that it's not written by anybody is something that I would love to try to like figure out how to work into some sort of time travel game. Oh, you accidentally wrote all the Beatles songs for them or something like that.
Hersey has done a time loop for us that was so good we talk about it to this day, and I swear to God, it was like 15 years ago. It was so great.
I didn't play it, but we helped him come up with it, or he came up with it, but it was the time dragon thing, Jason. I think it was it a Paizo? It was an adventure, right?
Oh, yes.
So the PCs were fighting a dragon.
Yeah, it was a Paizo adventure.
Who they definitely met before, but hadn't met yet in time, right? So I think the part of the thing was trying to get it revert to a point in its time when it knew who they were, so they wouldn't die as they were fighting it.
Yeah, it's a time dragon that's unstuck in time, and the fight happens in a different order for the PCs and for the dragon.
Yes.
So like in round 1, you're fighting the dragon, and in round 2, the dragon is 100 feet over there and breathing fire on you. But how did they get over there? Because in round 3, it's actually back and flying up here. But it was a real fun thing to try to write.
It moves out of sync, and it was brilliant and terrifying.
It was a high level.
read.
It was a high level thing, but
It was a high
good.
level.
Wow.
Ours was just one of our player characters called themselves from the future. So we were in the past timeline and someone got a phone call from themselves and we all got super freaked out by it, just sort of waiting for what was going to happen to make this person be able to call themselves in the past. And it was fantastic.
In doing so, you were being hunted by the time coyotes.
Oh yeah, no, they got real mad at us.
And this is what makes tabletop role playing amazing, and that's what it is. It's just what makes it the best ever. Hey Jason, now that we've talked about this really interesting story and all the cool stuff in it, are there other cool stories, be they video, book, or graphic novel, or heck, it can be interpretive art? What kind of story would you recommend to people that is like the Eyre Affair?
Yeah, like I said earlier, this has a very Douglas Adams vibe to it, so I definitely would recommend Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, which has a mystery in it and also has some time travel in it. Maybe that's a bit of a spoiler, but it has a lot of similarities with the Doctor Who episode City of Death, which Douglas Adams also wrote, so that's pretty cool. And then there's a couple TV shows based on it that I would also sort of recommend. They're pretty good, that have a little, the American one has there's a British one and an American one, and the American one has a little bit of different kind of time travel in it. There's also a graphic novel series called The Unwritten, which is a lot about literature and what is true, and going into books. There's a bad guy who gets shoved into a sort of a Beatrix Potter-esque world as punishment, and we sometimes see it from his point of view, and he's just cursing up a storm, but he's just a tiny badger, Mrs. Bunny, and all this stuff, and that's it. He's just like this tough, the gangsters type, and he's just like, why the heck am I here? So it's got a lot of stuff that a lot of good literature stuff, and just for the Shakespeare of it, I recommend the sitcom Upstart Crow from Britain. It is about Shakespeare's the main character, played by David Mitchell. It's written by one of the two guys who did Blackadder, so it's got that kind of humor. And it's a lot about Shakespeare and his wife and his theater company and Kit Marlowe and stuff like that, and getting into wacky antics. And he's like, I write comedies. And they're like, do you write comedies? Yeah. Isn't that funny? And then so it's making fun of Shakespeare while also sort of being a loving tribute to the plays as well.
Fantastic. Rob, you have media to recommend?
Yes, there was a show on Netflix called Bodies, where it was a time travel mystery with a single corpse found across 4 different time periods: 1890, 1940s, 2023, and 2053, all related to the same sort of conspiracy in the future about someone trying to grab ultimate power and political clout and all that sort of stuff. I thought that was very much in the book travel, alternate dimensions, time travel feel of the Eyre Affair. Also, the way I would run Eyre Affair situations would be a little more dangerous rather than let's go into this book and do something fun. It would be very much like backroomsy. You might get sucked into a book against your will, or there's something's out of control in this particular series and it's abducting people for reasons, for good and for bad. You have to go investigate, and maybe that would involve a little bit of twisty timeness based on a series like Game of Thrones even. There's a bunch of books in that series. You have to fix a Feast of Crows before we can get to Wolves of Winter, or whatever, Winds of Winter, whatever it might end up being. Who knows?
Or you can go in and actually write Winds of Winter while you're in there.
Yeah, maybe you could do it. How about that?
Exactly.
Maybe that's the reason we're playing this game. George R.R. Martin, one of my PCs. And then like Doctor Who, because it's such a Doctor Who-y thing.
Yeah, it's very British.
Yes, British and very whimsical.
It is your turn, Karen. Go ahead.
First, I would recommend any of Connie Willis's sort of time-traveling historians books. I would especially recommend To Say Nothing of the Dog, which is historians traveling to Victorian times, where there's sort of a mystery to solve, time things to fix, a lot of references to literature, whether it be from Victorian poets or the golden age of mysteries, Agatha Christie, Dorothy Sayers, etc. It's a lot of fun. One of my favorite books of all time. If we're going with vibes only, I would say Umbrella Academy, whether the graphic novel or the show, because it is time travel and complete wackiness and just people doing bizarre as hell things. And then finally, because I can't get through anything without mentioning Terry Pratchett or Discworld, I would recommend either Thief of Time or Night Watch. Time monks are a wonderful, wonderful setting in Pratchett's world, though don't read Night Watch before you have read all the other preceding Guards books, so you'll be very confused.
You have to know who Vimes is to know why he is.
Why he is the way he is, yes.
Why he is the way he is and what he does with it.
Okay, I'll throw mine in here. My first is that I'm currently doing a rewatch of The Librarians. I'm on season 2, and I've sped through it so that I could talk a little bit about Prospero and Moriarty, both of whom are freed early on in the season. And basically, they are called fictionals, and they're basically immortal, and they have all these cool powers. And I'm like, hey, this sounds a lot like something I'm reading right now. It does actually eventually involve time travel to go talk to Shakespeare in order to solve the problem of Prospero. So it really does tie back in to a very similar theme. I will recommend Seanan McGuire for almost any kind of book, and she does have a series of books that are about fictional characters who are from fairy tales who solve crimes. Snow White is the main detective in that. The first book is called Indexing. I think it has the wackiness that we've been talking about here. I'm going to throw in The Last Hour Between Worlds by Melissa Caruso, a book that we've previously covered here on the podcast. In that piece of fantasy fiction, one of the things that can happen is that kids who have great imaginations can fall between layers of reality, which reminded me a lot of what happened to Thursday Next and what the Japanese tourists could do to get into Jane Eyre. So I wanted to, one, plug an older show, and two, I thought that that had a good link to as a piece of media. So we've done it. We've talked about the book, but now it's time to talk about you guys again, and or things that interest you outside of the Eyre Affair. Do you folks have any projects, TTRPG or other, that you are working on that you would like our audience to know about? Keren, why don't you go first?
Sure. I don't have anything TTRPG related, but I do volunteer as a crisis counselor for the Crime Victims Treatment Center, which is crisis counseling for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. And CVTC has so many great services, from counseling to legal help, etc., that they provide free to survivors of SANDV. If you perhaps want to either help out or donate, you can go to cvtcnyc.org. Maybe send some help their way.
And there'll be a link in the show notes for that. Rob?
I don't have it. Maybe like 10 years ago, I could have told you about the company Jason and I had
Yes.
where we created some games, but this is a time travel podcast. So now everyone go back to 2010 or 2011 where we won an Emmy for Game Book Fortune's Fool, but that's over.
You know
But
what?
yes,
That though related to this, remember how the adventure that we made for it was about nursery rhymes, fairy tales,
Grimm's Fairy Tales.
Grim Tales.
Yes, Grim Tales.
Yeah,
So there
Grim
you
Tales,
go.
yeah.
No,
Yeah, we
totally
did that.
get that. And
But I'm not plugging it. You can't buy it.
You can't buy it anywhere.
I have to give it to you. Just if you see me and you want it, I'll give it to you. That's nice. Also, I want to plug extralife.org, extra-life.org. Sean Murphy, who Eric and I know friends with, and he does it every year at Rising Phoenix Con.
has also done a couple of shows here on the Game Masters Book Club, one of our guest GMs.
So I would like to push that toward the charity to help kids via games. Let's do that.
All right. And the link for that, of course, will be found in the show notes. Jason?
Yeah, I want to be capitalist. Since I work for Paizo in the industry, buy my book. Buy my book. By the time you're reading this, there's a book that I was design lead on called Battle Cry! It's a source book for stuff about wars and fighting and skirmishing combat. It kicks off a large in-setting event where the country that basically worships hell is fighting the country that is essentially the democracy of our setting. Check that out. Soon, sometime next year, adventures for that will also be a meta event coming out, and I wrote a couple of those, so keep an eye out to Paizo.com. You know what? I'll do this way. If there's any humble bundles that Paizo's involved in, they're always pretty great and good for charity, and you get a lot for your buck. And I'm going to say, Keren, you do have a little something that you can I'll talk about, because you helped do You did the design, did the layout work for my free RPG, This Complete Breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a game where you play as cereal mascots of your own creation. It is, again, free. It's PDF. You can get it on my itch.io page, which is itch.io/HersWeston. HERZWESTEN. Go download it for free. It comes with a template to make your own cereal box if you print out the cutout and fold it up.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt because I have a weird thing I want to put in. The one thing that got me to go to the first Total Con, which is eventually what got me in contact with most of the folks at Rising Phoenix, which is what got me in contact with Rob, which is what got me in contact with you. There was a Saturday morning game where we played a Johnny Quest novel while they provided us with milk and breakfast cereal, and that was what sold me to come to the con. So that was the gimmick that got me. I'm like, if I can go play Johnny Quest and have breakfast and play a role-playing game at the same time, I'm in.
Pretty awesome. And finally, if you want to hear me talk about Starfinder, which is this space version of the game that I work on, but I don't work on that version anymore. But I'm a big fan of it, so I talk about it with a couple other people in a podcast called Digital Divination. That's every 2 weeks.
We will also have a link at the end of the podcast, because we like other podcasts. It's fine.
Why not?
Yes, links to everything. That's the best thing. And that's our discussion of The Eyre Affair, the first book in the Thursday Next series by Jasper Fforde. You can find a complete transcript of today's discussion, as well as links to all of our podcasts at k-squareproductions.com/GMBC. You can learn about upcoming episodes on our social media on Blue Sky at gmbookclub.bluesky.social, on Facebook at Game Masters Book Club, on Mastodon at Game Masters Book Club, and on Instagram at Game Masters Book Club. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and comment on our episodes in your chosen podcasting space, and be sure to share those episodes with your gaming community. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to the Game Masters Book Club, brought to you by me, Eric Jackson, and K-Square Productions. Special thanks to literally some of the best game masters in the business, Keren Form, Jason Keeley, and Rob Trimarco. Look for them to return for All Systems Red, the first novella in the Murderbot series, coming this October. And don't forget to check out Karen's advice on how to add K-pop Demon Hunters to your game in our special summer blockbuster episode, episode 12. Continued praise and thanks to John Corbett for the podcast artwork and Otis Galloway for our music. Check out our next episode in 2 weeks when we take on the mind-altering madness that is Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Later, gamers, and to paraphrase the great Terry Pratchett, always try to be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape.